If your home office makes you feel restless, vaguely uncomfortable, or like you cannot get into a proper flow no matter how hard you try, the problem is almost certainly not your desk, it's not your chair, it's not your dog. What it is where everything is placed and why. Most home offices are set up by default. The desk goes against the wall because that's where it fits. The chair faces the corner because that's what is left. And nobody ever stops to ask whether the arrangement is actually working for the person sitting in it. Because by the time you notice something is wrong, you have already blamed yourself rather than the room. There are 6 layouts that change this, 6 specific arrangements built around how the brain actually functions under focus, not just where the furniture happens to fit. I'm Nina, interior designer. Let's get into it. If you are new here, subscribe. Honest, professional design insight every Sunday will come into your television or screen, and it costs absolutely nothing to subscribe. And our team would be so appreciative, me as well, because it'll allow us to continue to create good content. And Oscar will be extremely happy, right, Oscar? Oscar's saying, please subscribe. Okay, the command position. This is where every office layout should start. Before the desk, before the storage, before anything else, position. The command position is a principle rooted in environmental psychology. It refers to placing the primary seat so that you can see the entrance without sitting directly in line with it, with something solid, a wall, a bookcase, a partition behind you. It is a position of maximum spatial awareness, and it matters more in a workspace than almost anywhere else in the home. Here's why. The brain does not stop monitoring its environment when you sit down to work. It continues scanning, registering movement, sounds, anything that enters from behind or approaches without warning. When the desk faces a wall and the door is behind you, the brain is running that monitoring with no visual information to work with. It compensates by staying alert. And that low-level alertness is exactly what prevents deep focus. You are not distracted by something specific. You are distracted by the background hum of your own nervous system trying to stay aware of a space it cannot see. So the command position quiets that. When you can see the door from your desk, ideally at a diagonal rather than head-on, there is something solid behind you. The brain has the information it needs and stops searching for it. Focus becomes possible in a way it simply is not when you are facing a wall with your back to the room. So the single change, which is repositioning the desk so the door is visible and the back is supported, is the highest return layout decision in any home office. Everything else builds from there. Number 2. This one is my favorite, and this is how my office is designed, is the floating desk with bookcase backing. My backing is a closed bookcase, but essentially you can have it open. The command position requires something solid behind you, but not every room makes that possible. Open plan spaces, converted living rooms, studio apartments, rooms where the desk ends up in the middle of the space with open floor behind it and nowhere to anchor. This is the solution. When there is no architectural wall to work with, you build one with furniture. A bookcase, a credenza, a set of shelving placed behind the desk, not touching the chair, but positioned a deliberate distance behind it. This creates the visual and psychological equivalent of a solid back. The gap matters. The bookcase should not sit so close that it feels cramped or so far away that the connection between the desk and the backing dissolves. Roughly, you want to have about 2 to 3 feet behind the chair is where the brain registers the bookcase is backing rather than background furniture. Close enough to feel supported, far enough to breathe. What this arrangement also does is give the desk a presence in the room. A desk pushed against a wall disappears into it. A desk floating with a considered backing reads as a purposeful installation, a space designed for working, not a surface placed wherever it fit. Now, the bookcase also has a secondary function too. It holds reference materials, books, and objects that support the work, within reach and within sightline. Organize behind you everything you need without turning around to find it. The room within a room office. So this is the layout that matters most for anyone without a dedicated room for work. And in most homes, that's really where people are. The problem with a desk in a living room, a bedroom, or an open plan space is not just visual, it is psychological. When work and the rest of life share the same undifferentiated space, the brain never fully transitions between the two. And then work bleeds into the evening because the desk is still visible. Rest is harder because the space has been associated with output. The desk is always there, always in peripheral vision, always registering as something unfinished. And in fact, it could trigger a lot of stress if you see your work in your everyday spaces. The room within a room office addresses this with three elements: a rug that defines the work zone, a bookcase or shelving unit that creates a visual boundary on at least one side, and a dedicated light source, a floor lamp, a desk lamp that gets switched on when work begins and off when you are away. Together, these three things create something no desk alone can: a zone with a clear on and off purpose. When the lamp is on and you're inside the rug, you are essentially at work. When the lamp goes off and you step outside the boundary, you are not. The brain responds to that signal in a way it cannot respond to a desk just sitting in a room with no defined edges. The rug is the most important element. It anchors the furniture, defines the perimeter, and tells the eye where the work zone really begins and where the rest of the room begins. Without it, the desk is just a piece of furniture floating and you would feel lost. With it, it is the center of the space and very, very purposeful and important to implement. Quick pause. If you are setting up a home office and you are not sure how to make any of this work in your actual space, that is exactly why my one-on-one design consultations are available to everybody. We look at your specific room, your constraints, and I tell you exactly what to do in what order. You can have any kind of design dilemma, by the way, not just your office, and you can click the link in my description. My Zoom calendar pops up, and then we can have a one-on-one consultation, whether it be 25 minutes or longer, and we can define any design dilemma you have, from kitchen remodel ideas to furniture layout to wall coloring to anything that is on your mind. All right, number 4, the L-shaped arrangement. Most people think of an L-shaped desk as a space decision, something you chose when you need more surface area. It is actually a workflow decision, to be honest, and understanding it that way changes everything about how you set it up. The L-shaped arrangement creates two distinct surfaces: the primary surface, where the screen lives and where the focus work happens, and the return, which functions as a physical transition zone. Reference materials, a notebook, a second monitor, a project in progress, that does not need to be cleared away every time you shift a task. The distinction matters because the brain works differently when it can physically move between types of work, shifting from screen to paper, from one project to another. With each shift involves even a smaller physical movement or rotation of the chair. It functions as a cognitive reset. The work feels more organized because the space is organized to reflect different modes of working. This is highly desirable for a person like myself, like a Virgo. Orientation determines how well this works. The primary surface should follow the command position, door visible, back supported. The return should extend toward the window rather than away from it, so that when you shift to the secondary surface, you are turning toward natural light rather than away from it. The mistake most people make when it comes to L-shaped desks is treating both surfaces as interchangeable, spreading everything across both indiscriminately until neither is actually clear. The arrangement only works when each arm has a designated function, and you keep that distinction. Trust me, this is a wonderful way to organize your life and organize the ability to multitask and do it effectively. Number 5 is the two-person office, the most under-designed layout in modern history. And the one that generates the most daily friction in homes where two people share the same workspace. And I know it's not ideal, but sometimes it is what it is. The default solution, 2 desks pushed against opposite walls, each person facing their own walls back to each other. It solves the space problem and it creates several others though. Neither person has a command position, both are facing walls, which is terrible. Both have the other person's movements in their peripheral blind spot, and the room reads as 2 people tolerating a shared space rather than a space designed for 2 people to work in simultaneously. The 2-person office needs a different logic entirely. The goal for each person to have their own version of the command position, both able to see the door, neither with their backs exposed and neither positioned so that the other person becomes a constant source of peripheral distraction. The arrangement that achieves this most consistently is 2 desks placed at angles to each other, not parallel. Not facing directly towards each other, but oriented so that each person faces a different part of the room with a natural sightline toward the entrance. A low bookcase, a plant, or a considered object placed between the 2 desks gives each person a degree of visual separation, enough to feel in their own zone without the room feeling divided into 2 separate offices. What you are actually designing is a space with parallel independence. 2 people in the same room who can work without either being a distraction to the other. That requires deliberate placement, not just fitting 2 desks into an available floor plan. All right, number 6, the alcove or nook desk, a very good one. Every home has at least one of these useless alcoves, and under stair recess, an architectural alcove, a bay window deep enough to hold a desk, a space that is not quite a room, but is defined enough to feel separate from everything around it. Most people treat these as leftover spaces, usually left empty, but a desk gets pushed in because it fits, without any thought given to making it feel like a decision, and the result is a workspace that feels exactly like what it is, a desk in a corner that nobody knew what else to do with. Now, the difference between an alcove desk that feels incidental and one that feels considered comes down to 3 things. First, the desk should fill the width of the space properly. Not so small that it floats inside the alcove with empty space on either side, and not so large that it is crammed in. A desk that fits with the width of the recess with a few inches of clearance on each side reads as built for that space. One that sits loosely inside, it reads as placed there temporarily. So this is something that can be easily done with a little bit of research when you're purchasing your desk. Second, the alcove needs its own dedicated light source. Again, a pendant above the desk is always a great idea, a wall-mounted lamp, a desk lamp specific to that zone, something that makes the space feel lit and purposeful. Trust me, these are all over Paris and they are wonderful. This is the single detail that mostly transforms a nook from a leftover to a destination. And without it, the alcove is shadowed and incidental. With it, it's an actual room, believe it or not. Third, the interior walls of the alcove should be treated as walls of a space, not the inside of a closet. A considered paint color slightly deeper than the surrounding room, or maybe even a wallpaper, creates depth and makes the enclosure feel intentional. And speaking of wallpaper, you guys know I have launched my second 2.0 collection with Bellarte. We are going to link both my wallpaper collections below in the description section if you guys need to create an alcove with wallpaper or for any of your wallpaper needs. Shelving integrated into the side walls makes the recess feel fully resolved rather than half addressed. Done correctly, an alcove is one of the best possible positions for a home office. It provides natural enclosure on 3 sides, which is exactly what a bookcase or partition works to achieve in an open room. The brain already reads it as a contained, defined space, and the design job is simply to honor that and make it feel like it was always meant to be. Every one of these comes back to the same principle. A home office should be designed for the person working in it, not arranged around whatever space was left over. The difference is how you feel at the end of a working day, focused versus drained, settled versus restless. Now, if this was useful, please give it a thumbs up. Let us know if you have a home office or not, and if any of these tips were helpful. I appreciate every single one of your inputs. I love to hear what you guys are seeing, what you guys are thinking about the episodes that we are making. And if you have a specific design idea you would like us to do a deep dive on, well, the comment section is open so that we can hear what dilemmas you guys have so we can solve them for you. I will see you next Sunday. And YouTube thinks you will like these videos, so keep watching.